Hello, I'm Lee Sandry, Training Manager for Watson Marlow. In this session we're going to talk about close coupled and base plate pumps. So we've got 521, 621 close coupled pumps, 701 base plate pumps, the big selling messages of those models, the features and benefits of the range, what's it for, ATEX compliant versions, and then what is available in no particular order. So what's available? Well, basically it gives you a whole range of drive options. So for example, at the bottom of the screen there I've put 521 VIB just as an example. So that would be a 500 series close coupled pump with a Leroy Somer Varmeca. So that gives us an integrated inverter mounted on a base plate, a VIB. But you can see we've got lots of choices. You've got explosion proof pumps, fixed speed pumps, you've got pneumatic drivens, you've got variable speed with mechanical variators. So there's lots and lots of choices available. Okay, and I'm going to take you through some of those options. So in terms of drive options, you've got quite a few different choices available. Most of what we do are electrically driven, but some are air driven. So for example, the one on the left side, the picture on the left of the slide shows an compressed air driven or pneumatic pump. The pump head is very similar to what we see elsewhere. It's the drive which changes here. The picture in the middle is electrically driven, but that has a separate inverter. So that inverter can be supplied by Watson Marlow, or of course the customer can just buy the pump drive from us with the head and they can use their own inverter. Okay, so that's what's called a standalone inverter. They can mount that inverter anywhere they want. The picture on the right shows a close coupled pump but with an integral inverter. So that the inverter is mounted on top of the motor. So that control is then local, it's there with the pump. So that gives you variable speed. So you've got lots and lots of drive options. Okay, the whole idea is it opens up, rather than having case pumps which are very good, some customers need something slightly different. This gives you those options. So the core part of the range, if you like, so 521 and the 621, the whole purpose of these pumps is to give a lower whole life ownership cost. So if your cased pumps are too expensive and maybe the customer doesn't need all the features and functions of a case pump, this does give you the opportunity to sell a pump. Okay, it won't have all the whistles and bells of a cased pump, but for some applications that's absolutely fine. Okay, so fixed speed options then. This is denoted by an F in the pump description, fixed speed. You can see in the pictures there we've got a 521F at the top, and then we've got a 521FX at the bottom being Duplex. Okay, so we've got lots of choices. Again, you've got lots of different speeds available. Your standards are 60, 213, 291 for rotational speed in the 521F. In the 621F, you've got 77 and 251 as your standard options. Now, if you wanted something else, our applications engineering team can help you with that. We do hundreds of different options, I'm sure. Okay, and we've supplied these pumps for a long time, so we probably already do the speed you want. We can do different voltages for these as well. So most of them are three-phase, but we can also do single-phase as well. So that's the fixed speed drive option. The variable speed drive options, so these are 521 VI. You've got 6 to 63 RPM, 22 to 220 RPM, and then 27 to 275 RPM. And as you can see in the pictures there, it's got a 600 series pump head on the front. The drives do look quite similar. Okay, so 621, you've got 7 to 78 RPM, you've got 15 to 146 RPM, and then 26 to 261. The bottom picture actually shows the 521 mounted on a base plate, so that's an option. You've got 110 volt, 230 volt, 400 volt, so you've got lots of choices. If these speeds aren't quite the ones you want, again, applications engineering can do a specific ratio for you. So the Varmeca brings 10 to 1 control ratio. So where I said before, where it doesn't give you all the options you get with a cased pump, this is one of the things you don't really get, is very fine speed control. So you might notice in the previous slide that your minimum speeds were quite high. With these pumps, we have a 10-to-1 turn down ratio. So if your maximum speed is 261, your minimum speed is going to be 26. That's a 10-to-1 turn down. So the pump will start to rotate at 26 RPM. Now for some customers, that's fine. They're only going to run in a small window, so that's okay. Performance window, you know, RPM between this and this, that's absolutely fine. But just bear that in mind that they don't have the turn down that you get on a cased pump. The speed control panel you can see on the side of the Varmeca, that has 15 to 100 percent on it, 15 to 100% on it. So it doesn't give you a speed as such. Okay, you need to sort of work that out 100%, you know, and it doesn't actually show you what the speed is. You've got a start button and two direction keys, clockwise, anti-clockwise. So the pump does not necessarily run at a given speed. You can't set it to run at exactly 100 RPM unless you're very clever with the speed control knob on the side. So just bear that in mind. You don't get any of the feedback that you get with a cased pump. You can also control this pump using analog and digital remote control signals, and Profibus is available as well. We wouldn't use Varmeca for Profibus, we use Nord, who are another motor manufacturer for Profibus, but we can do that if you need it. Okay, so that, just bear that in mind. With the inverter driven stuff, you don't get the speed control that you get with a cased pump. So Duplex drives, denoted by an X in the product code or description. Basically all of these are mounted on base plates, because otherwise the pump drive is sitting on the pump heads, which isn't great. But basically you've got two pump heads, one each side of the drive. It's important to remember that one is running clockwise, one is running anti-clockwise. So the flow is, as we're looking at them now, is in at the bottom and out at the top, or in at the top and out at the bottom on both pump heads. But you can do things like two different products. You can pump one pump head as a large tube in to pump the main product, and then the other pump head has a smaller tube in to pump an additive. So you'll always get the same ratio then. You know, there's lots of different options available here, Duplex being a very good one for customers that need to double their flow, or they need to pump two products at the same time, or whatever it might be. Okay, gives you lots and lots of great features, the Duplex pump. I'll show you some specials later on, but yeah, denoted by an X in the product code. These are all classed as engineered products. Okay, there's no such thing as a standard Duplex. Okay, you need to speak to our applications engineering team for one of these. They will sort out what you need. So pneumatic variable speed drives. Now one thing I will say about these before we start is these are not ATEX drives. Okay, so these are not ATEX rated. They can be, but as standard, ATEX pumps, okay, are certified as ATEX pumps. Air-driven pumps are certified as air-driven pumps. Okay, so just because it's air-driven does not make it ATEX. Okay, I will come on to ATEX a bit later on. What's important to remember here is that you don't quite get the speed control that you get with electrically driven drives. A lot of customers like air because they already have compressed air on site. There are a few downsides with these pumps though. One is they're quite noisy, but for me the main one is it always needs a filtered and lubricated air supply. We don't supply the pump as standard with a lubricator. We can do, but it's not normal for us. The customer will supply that themselves. We can supply a complete system if someone wants one, with air lubricator, with air filter, with air trap, oil trap on the air, exhaust air. Okay, if that pump is run without lubricated air, it will stall. So it basically will seize at some point. You need to be aware of that, because if these things are going into clean rooms, trying to explain to a customer that you need lubricated air in a clean room, okay, can cause issues because the exhaust air is also going to contain oil, so they need to put an oil trap in. So just be aware that these need a filtered and lubricated air supply. It is possible to get these that don't need a lubricated air supply, but obviously the cost goes up considerably. Also, we don't fit them with direction control. So there's no direction control on these things. So the air goes in one way and out the other way, or you swap that around. That we can do all of that, but it's not as standard. So again, really these aren't standards at all. They're all done as engineered product. We buy in a power frame gearbox from Nord. They buy an air motor from Gast and assemble it onto their power frame and supply it to Watson Marlow. We then fit a pump head, whichever pump head's required, to the front of it. Okay, so as you can see, we've got 521P at the top and then 313P at the bottom. So a 701 base plate pump. Basically what happens here is the base plate is connecting the pump head and the drive together. So there is a coupling in between the drive and the pump head. Now I don't say gearbox here, because with this particular pump head you don't need a gearbox. The pump head is a gearbox. So we can connect this thing directly to a 4-pole electric motor, and that gives us 360 RPM because it's a 4-to-1 reduction gearbox. So these are base plate pumps. A close coupled pump, like you would see with a 5-to-1 or a 6-to-1 pump, for example, basically the output shaft of the gearbox is where we fit our rotor. The only thing that's connected to the output shaft of the motor is a coupling, and we drive straight into the back of the pump head using a coupling. But effectively the pump head is a gearbox. We can fit inverters to this if you want speed control. We can do air driven versions, but these are always obviously fitted with a base plate. So in terms of pump heads are very similar to what you find elsewhere. So 313s, 3-roller version, 4-roller version, 1.6 wall, 2.4 wall, extendable. So you can put lots of different pump heads on, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever you want. Nice and easy to load. So the 313's been around for a long time. We sell thousands of them, in fact. Okay, so very, very popular. You'll notice here we can do 3 litres a minute intermittently with these things. A lot of the close coupled drives run at higher speeds than case drives, so we will see slightly higher flow rates here. So 520 then, the 520 R2C is a continuous tubing model. The C is for close coupled because the mounting holes are very slightly different than what you find on a case pump. Okay, so bear that in mind. In terms of flow rate per revolution, tube size, tube materials, pressure ratings, is exactly the same. It's the mounting which is different. So you'll see here the flow rate's up to 4.6 litres per minute. So it's higher than a case pump because they have these drives can have a higher top speed. Okay, so you get a very good amount of flow from a relatively small pump head with this setup. This is the element version. So this is the 520 REC. Okay, so element E and then C for close coupled. So it's exactly the same construction as what we saw in the previous pump head, but you'll see here we've got different pressure ratings. So the element, the load shore version, gives you higher pressure rating. So I've put a picture of one element there for you. You can see that the element has connectors on the end. That's what we mean by a load shore element. It's a piece of tubing, whatever the material is, with connectors on the end. And those connectors can vary as well. So you can get flows, again, up to 4.6 litres per minute, and then at 2 bar. That's great. Okay, if your pressure goes up to 7 bar, we're down to 600 milliliter a minute. So let me just show you the next slide and I'll explain what I mean when it comes into pressure. So we do 3 setups here. The setups are the 520 REL, okay, is from 0 to 2 bar. So the color of those components are gray. So the element, the connector on the end of the element is grey, and then the rotor cap is grey. So they must match. The 520 REM is 2 to 4 bar. The connector on the element is brown, and the rotor cap is brown. The 520 REH is 4 to 7 bar. The element connector is blue, and then the rotor cap is blue. Okay, so it's really important that they always match. So it must be grey with grey, brown with brown, blue with blue. You cannot mix them up, or you should not mix them up. Be very careful of this, okay? It's not difficult, but people still seem to get it wrong. They must match to get the best performance, pressure, whatever it might be. Tube life is another one. Okay, so be very, very careful. Make sure you sell the benefits of this, because there's a lot of benefits using load shore. Higher pressure is one of them. Pump heads, 620 RC pump heads is what we're talking about here. So straight away, this is a continuous tubing pump head. Yes, it's an RC, so it's a close coupled version. So the screw holes on the back of the track assembly are made to fit a close coupled drive, so they don't fit case drives. But in every other way, they're the same tube sizes, same material, same flow rates per revolution. Okay, you get exactly the same as what you get when you use a case pump. So flows here up to 16 litres a minute. Can you see I've also highlighted the tube clamps? So the continuous tube version has tube clamps in it, where the tube clamps, half the tube clamps fits in the door and the other half fits in behind the tubing inside the track. So as you close the door, it clamps the tube. So these are twin roller pump head, this particular one, stainless steel rollers, large volume, so you get a nice flow. So 16 litres a minute is quite a high flow. You've got 7 tube materials and 4 bore sizes. So then there is a element version of this as well, which is the 620 REC. It's a 2-roller load shore version. I've put a couple of pictures of load shore elements there so you can see them in a bit more detail. The load shore fitting connector has fittings on the end that allows you to connect to process. So to make the tube fit, okay, we put those connectors on. There's no tube clamps here, so the connectors actually slot into the pump head. Very simple system. It means you don't get it wrong. It's the same every time. Tube fitting, very, very easy here. But what we've done is we've actually increased the pressure rating. So with the element version, you can go up to 4 bar quite comfortably. We've gone for a thicker wall as well to give you more suction lift, so you've got better flow with viscous product. So your flow rates now are up to 18 litres a minute. The bore size of the tubes actually get bigger as well. So the bigger bore here is 17 millimeter. So you get 18 litres a minute potentially with this pump head. So then we have the 4-roller version as well. So if pulsation becomes a problem, for example, we can put 4 rollers in this pump head. It works in exactly the same way. You've got those 4 stainless steel retractable rollers, but here we've got 4 of them, so you get a lot more pulses, but those pulses are smaller, so you get a much smoother flow. The downside to that, of course, is the tube life is lower because there are more squeezes, plus your flow rate is lower, so we're down to 13 litres a minute here, the 4-roller version. Moving on then to the 701 RB and the 720 RB. These are continuous tubing models. The tubing fits inside those tube clamps. You can see in the right hand picture you've got that tube clamp with the serrations on the side. What this pump head is very good at is flow. So it's not a particularly big pump head, maybe 300 millimeter wide, okay, but gives you a flow of 33 litres a minute. So it uses large tubing. So the largest tube is 1-inch bore, 25.4 millimeter bore. So you get lots of flow from this pump head. To open it, you need tooling, so it's relatively safe, okay. It's tool lockable, so it gives you a high level of safety. The inside of it, though, I explained to you, is a 4-to-1 reduction gearbox. It has 4 rollers inside. It's a 4-to-1 reduction gearbox, and I'll show you that in the next slide. So you can see the rollers inside are driven. You can see the gold planetary gear on the inside. That drives the rollers. So that is the golden sun gear, as we call it, is driven by the drive, and then that drives the rollers. So effectively it reduces the speed down by a factor of 4-to-1. That makes tube life better, makes it longer, okay, because those rollers don't just spin around. They're actually driven, so it gives you a longer tube life. This shows the load shore system, so you can see the tubing has connectors at each end, slots into the pump head. So that is all the spare part you would need. You just change that piece out. It means you can't get it wrong, so you get the same tube life every time. So 33 litres per minute from this pump head. So that's 701 or 720 RBE. This is, so the difference between the 701 RBE and the 720 RBE is basically the drive shaft on the back. And also some of the surfaces inside are painted or not. So the 701 is not, some of the parts are not painted inside, and the 720, all the parts are painted inside. So there are differences between them, but in terms of performance, they're the same. Now most baseplate pumps use a 701 RBE, but there are a few that use the 720 RBE. In terms of the way they work, very, 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 very similar. Okay, there are a few subtle changes, but nothing that no one can't work out. They're very, very similar, do the same thing. Driven rollers, tool lockable track, long life, high flow. Okay, great pump head. Now ATEX compliance. A lot of people get very tied up with ATEX. Oh, I need to know about this and that. And I would say to you, no you don't. We have experts here at the factory that can help you with ATEX. Okay, so there are a number of people who are specialists in ATEX. If you have any questions in ATEX at all, contact our application engineering team. Every ATEX pump we supply is an engineered product. It's built specifically for that one customer and that application. What you need to be very careful about with ATEX, or EXD for that matter, is paperwork. When we build an ATEX pump, the drive we buy from a supplier, that drive might well be more than one thing. So it could be a gearbox and a motor and an inverter, say. Unlikely in ATEX, but possible. Each part of that assembly will have its own paperwork. That then has to go together. So each part often has a serial number. Okay, paperwork is serial numbered. So we basically send the pump out with a booklet. So it might be a gearbox and the motor and one for the pump head. And then we will certify the whole drive. If that paperwork is lost, there are no other copies. Okay, so if you lose the paperwork, basically the pump is useless, because you can't install it because you need the paperwork to prove compliance. So be very careful with ATEX. There are different classes and different groups and different zones. I'm not going to go into them in any great detail here, apart from to say, if you have ATEX, if you have need for ATEX pumps, speak to our applications engineering team. There is a team of people at Falmouth who can help you with this stuff. So here's an example of ATEX compliant models. They're actually very similar drives. The motors are different sizes. The gearbox is the same type. So this is actually a manually adjustable for speed gearbox. So the motor runs at a fixed speed, and then you change the gearbox ratio by turning the black control knob on the side of the unit. So we've got a 501, we've got a 621, and then we've got a 701 ATEX pump here. You'll see that mostly they're mounted on base plates, not always, but mostly they are. Can you also see, and I've highlighted it there, there is an earth strap. The big thing with ATEX is earthing. You must make sure that all parts are earthed, and what we mean by earth is connected to ground. So there is no potential, no static. So static causes potential, and potential causes sparks, and we don't need sparks in an explosive environment. So these are very, very popular, but just gives you an idea of what an ATEX pump will look like. Like I say, the pump is very important, but the paperwork is just as important with ATEX. So some examples of some engineered products. So picture top left is pretty standard as a pump, but you can see it's a special color. So it can be something as simple as that. The pump top right is a standard color, but here those black that black trunking you can see is carrying a door switch. So you can connect that door switch to a stop signal. Okay, so when you open the door, it stops the drive. Fantastic. Some people like that. They want that extra security rather than just tool lockable. Picture bottom right looks like an ATEX pump to me. Okay, it's got that explosive proof drive on there. It's mounted on a base plate. It's got two 505L pump heads fitted to it, so that is very much a special, designed specifically for a customer. And then the picture bottom left, that has a Nord inverter fitted to it. So that's a Nord drive with a Nord inverter fitted to it on a 701 base plate pump. So again, there are a few standards with close coupled pumps, but we do a lot of engineered product as well. Sometimes 1s or 2s, 3s or 4s. Sometimes it could be 100 off, so we've done lots and lots of choices for customers. So what's available then? I really want to highlight the picture in the middle here. So can you see that we've got a drive with 313 pump heads on one side and then a 501RL on the other. So that's a duplex pump mounted on a base plate with different pump heads on it. So I don't know what it's doing exactly, but that's what the customer has specified, or one of our sales offices has specified. So we've done that as a special for someone. So again, there's loads of choices available, different types of drive, different sorts of pump heads. So it just makes, it means you've got more choices available for the customer. I can't do that with a case pump, but I can do it with a close coupled pump. So thank you for listening. Hopefully you'll take something useful away from this. Okay, any questions, please let me know.